When your depression has reached a certain stage, where you started hearing voices in your head trying to convince you that the only way out of your pain is to end your life, you must seriously start to question if those voices are from you or from someone else. If one day the voices harass and haunt you until you couldn't take it anymore and you decided to kill yourself or others to end your suffering, you may have just allowed yourself to be manipulated by external force that you cannot see. This force will leave you the moment your hands leave the railing while you're jumping down to your death. A retired policeman who has seen his share of suicide cases by those jumping down a bridge says survivors always say that the moment their hands leave their railing, they regret and know that they have made the biggest mistake of their lives. There is a story from Kevin Hines, who survived the jump from the Golden Gate Bridge and lived to tell the story. I will link the video down below. But what happened was that he had some problems, and then the moment he wanted to make the jump and decided that he's going to commit suicide, he jumped down from the Golden Gate Bridge, where survival rate is known to be literally zero. Basically, Kevin suffered from bipolar disorder. And do take note that he did mention in his video that when he had doubts about committing suicide, he said he could clearly hear a voice in his head that told him, "Be quiet, Kevin, you got to die." So it does make me wonder that could it be possible that at that point that there could be an external voice, that that person's psychic defense has gone to such an extent, has been lowered to and compromised to such an extent that the person becomes susceptible to these external suggestions that come up. Now, in this video, I would like to share on my personal experience. This is what really happened to me many years ago. Now, there was a period in my life where I fell into great depression. I was very sad about a loss. I was unable to cope with my emotions and spent time wallowing in my grief and sadness until it spiraled out of control. The feeling of perpetual sadness almost never left me. And I'm thankful and fortunate that at that point of time I had a bunch of supporting friends. At that point of time when I had the depression, it was not a common knowledge as it is today. I was still schooling, but it was in another state and I was away from my family. Therefore, I had to attend classes and I had to do assignments, so there was no way I could avoid my friends. I did talk to my friends about my problems, but all they could do was to listen and offer some so-called helpful advice, but it was not helpful to me at all, even though they had the best of intentions. So with time, I felt that there was nobody really understood how I felt, and I was in the perpetual feelings of despair. So during the time when I was quite sad, I would just go out. I didn't know why, but I just had this tendency. I like to go out when it's nearing sundown, the sun is going to set, and then I would just visit depressing places and just sit down there. For example, I would take the bus to the General Hospital, which was a very old building. It was more than 50 years ago. It was very depressing. The place was very dark, kind of dark place, where the kind of place whereby no matter how much lighting you put, it still looked like very dark. So why was I there? Because I felt that sadness, that energy kind of resonate with me, and after a while I felt like, there was something sympathetic that seemed to understand how I felt. So I could understand now why people who are undergoing depression, they like to be in a dimly lit room and, in places where there's not much light, and somehow dark, gloomy places. That's what normally people who are depressed tend to hang out in. Now, I also like to go to very old buildings. Like, I feel that there's an energy that's kind of resonate with what I was feeling, if it makes sense. At the same time, I will be listening to songs, very sad songs that further actually re-emphasize and make me hold on to reminders of the past. There's an unexplained sadness that caused me to cry uncontrollably, a feeling of helplessness that overwhelmed me. So I remember these feelings tend to get very worse, and I'll be in my bed crying all alone. So eventually I did move out and stay on an apartment on the 8th floor with some of my friends, and things did not get better. So I was still compelled to play those sad wailing songs and replay the sad memories in my mind again and again and again and again. Eventually, what started as some kind of sympathetic feelings, like there is something that resonated and was sympathetic with me, turned into something more sinister. There was one evening I remember when I walked out of the balcony of the 8th floor of the apartment where I was staying in. I actually looked down and I distinctively heard a voice telling me that I'm so sad. It's like a sympathetic voice to tell me that I'm so sad. And the only way that I could end my pain is to jump down from that balcony. I remember I looked down and I actually felt there was this kind of like a magnetic pull towards the ground. And I read some literature that some people even saw, some literature from Hong Kong, some people even saw these spirits down there all gathering and then welcoming them. So it was quite scary. But for me, I just felt a magnetic pull. And the voice, jump, dear, jump. Your pain is going to be all over. Now I got shocked. I really got a shock. Even now as I'm telling you this, I had the hairs on my head, at the back of my head still raised up. I was shocked. I stepped back. Because fortunately, something kind of jolted me out of this of my like a trance state, and then I knew that the voice was not from me. It was somebody else, something else. Then eventually I start asking why, how did I got into the stage where I start hearing this voice? Was it because I allowed myself to weaken so much considerably that I'm like going crazy or something like that, going into dark, depressing places where darker force or entities or whatever it is could possibly hang around and attach themselves to my energy and my weakened aura. So it's eventually slowly eroding and will allow my mind and energy to weaken enough to further, when you're especially when you're sad and you listen more to depressing song, it even makes it worse, because like if you keep listening and replaying, it can get hypnotic, and the kind of song will just you just kind of like being hypnotized to actually to think of the song all the time, and it will increase the depressive thoughts. But whatever it is, something in me snapped. I can tell you I was very angry, and I was also very angry at what that I felt was instigating me. I was also very angry with myself for allowing myself to reach that state. So slowly, my journey of recovery started. I sort of like put myself together. Slowly, I crawl out of my spiral of depressive thought. So, as I'm a Buddhist, I started to read Buddhist book, and then I actually learned meditation classes. And after a few months of practice, I felt my awareness was strong enough. One day, I think there was a light. I felt there was a light, and then the depressive mood just sort of disappeared. So why do I want to share this story? Now, our downward spiraling of depression may not be entirely our doing, but we still have a part to play in it, and we have to take responsibility. Because whenever we feel down or negative, there is a tendency to dwell on the emotion, to wallow in that deep sadness. And slowly, we are encouraging the feeling to come out more and more. We may also tend to favor environment that is dark. Like in our own home, we'll probably draw out the curtains and blinds and then sleep all the time. And then due to this sadness and always not moving around, our body becomes fatigued. And it's not unusual to develop chronic fatigue syndrome. So at this stage, our psychic protection will thin out, and there will be a lot of vulnerabilities in our aura and life force energy. Negative entities are drawn to such individuals because when the mind of a person is weakened, it's easier to influence. I've actually came to sort of like believe this in these past few years, because I've observed more and more to find it to be true. Especially so if the person chooses to numb the inner pain through use of drugs and alcohol. Because when a person takes drugs and alcohol, it actually knocks out their senses. Because you would not be awake and aware. Your awareness will be very, very minimal, leaving a person vulnerable to invasion and possession. I'm not the only one who say this. There are a number of Western healers also have actually mentioned about this before. Because of weakening awareness and mindfulness, the negative force would have an increasing stronger grip on our consciousness. So much so that it will come to a point that we may no longer be able to tell the difference between our own thoughts and a planted or intrusive thoughts. When the external force gradually merges with our consciousness, we may be able to command us to do certain action. It can ride on our dominant negative emotions. For example, if we have a lot of anger, it can plant the thoughts for us to go out and kill and torture people. But if by nature we are a good person, it may not be able to influence us to go out and kill people, but it may plant self-destructive thoughts such as, I'm worthless and therefore I should just die and get rid of myself so that I won't be a burden to others. And this thought becomes so strong that we may become convinced of the truth in them. The saddest part I have, the biggest concern I have for this is that once a person gives in to this suggestion and end their life, they die for nothing. Nothing. They die in vain. We need to ask ourselves, is it worth it to listen to some lost soul or spirit or ghost to tell us what we want to do with our life? So next is, how are we going to be able to get ourselves better? We can first help ourselves. If we need to go to therapy, we need to go to therapy to address the issue that we are having. But how we can help our own self is then to increase our awareness. Try to minimize the negativity in the media. avoid scary horror movies, pornography, serial killer movies or videos, and any shows that portray people playing characters that you want to be, that you desperately wish you are in. Because at this stage, you may be tempted to immerse yourself in this story to console yourself. So when we do things that numb our senses, we may lose our inherent awareness. That we may also be in that constant semi-awake or drunken state that eventually may make us lose the ability to differentiate between what is real and what is not. So we also need to do our best to avoid being sucked back into the depressive habit. Go for a walk, start with a short period, then slowly build up the timing, identify a hobby, maybe attend some motivational talks or talk to somebody, or talk to the best. If there's nobody to talk to, nobody that positive to talk to, then talk to a therapist. Or psychologists that may be able to help us. But whatever you do, don't let yourself give in to those negative, invasive thoughts. In Hong Kong, I watched a talk show in Hong Kong in Hong Kong, and it's well known that between Hong Kong people, right, especially in people who practice like Taoism or Buddhist practice, to them they will say that a lot of suicide are caused by when the person actually commits suicide they say is spirit possession. But to the extent that, but it doesn't happen overnight. The person actually was gradually weakened slowly until the force just need a few seconds for this person to do the act, like run and jump down from the building or run into oncoming truck. Just a few seconds, they have to take full possession of that person. But it could be months and months of work that an external negative entity need to do to be able to have that power. But it's still a scary thought to know that this could be happening. So I wish that you will take care of yourself, be well, and don't end your life. Be aware that whether every time when you're sad and you're thinking of very bad, destructive things to do, ask yourself, are those your thoughts? Are these intrusive thoughts yours? If you have any reason to think that it may not originate from you, then it's time to really take action. I wish you all the best and take care, and may you have the blessings, and may you be able to overcome the problems, the pain, the sorrow that you're having. Take care.